everybody? Welcome back to Tech Reacts, where every beat counts. My name is Matt Tech. We are continuing with Ren today. Shout out to all the renegades who have made their way to the channel. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the wisdom, the knowledge, the education, the suggestions. So I started with High Ren. We went into Jenny and Screech, which was something. And by far, and I don't know if it's because of how I responded from my Christian worldview that you guys suggested Eden, but we're gonna do Eden today. And a couple of you has said that it's not really a song; it's more of a spoken word. So I'm assuming again, in Ren's style, he's gonna be telling a story. Caveat before we get started: not a surprise that I shared with everybody I'm a Christian. The title says worship drummer, so I put it out there for everybody to see. Everybody is welcome on this channel as long as you bring respectful discourse and dialogue. But if Ren is telling a story that comes from the Bible which I believe is true cover to cover, and it's not correct, I have to align it with where the story actually originated. So we're going to rock and roll straight into this thing. It's not terribly long, and from what I understand, this is coming off of the heels of something called Money Game, which I have not listened to yet. But it was like a public like work together project, and it culminates with this, I guess, is what some of you guys had said, that this came on the tail end of Money Game. I'll have to watch Money Game later. But since this was so heavily recommended, I'm going to go ahead and do Eden, and we'll see where this goes. But very interested, and let's rock and roll. This is Eden by Ren.
Let me tell you a story as old as time, the story of Adam and Eve. It starts with a God who wanted more. God had just created the heavens and the earth. He had the angels by his side, but they had no will of their own.
Wait, is this on his channel? Oh, this is his video. For a second, I thought somebody just took his track and put their own video game like thing on it, but he didn't. Okay, let's start over. That's very interesting.
Let me tell you a story as old as time.
Oh, that effect on his voice is really cool.
The story of Adam and Eve. It starts with a God who wanted more. God had just created the heavens and the earth. He had the angels by his side, but they had no will of their own. And so the autonomy to love or reject him was never theirs. All but for one. The once called bringer of light. Lucifer, morning star. Lucifer was the fairest and most intelligent of all the angels. He was the closest thing to God's image, and in his likeliness, Lucifer felt restless. He began to question and doubt God. He doubted the hierarchy opposed upon him. He felt God was arrogant. In his frustration, Lucifer built a throne that stood even above God's and declared mutiny. A war ensued. God, being all-powerful, came out the victor and banished Lucifer from the heavens and exiled him to earth. Once again, God was alone with his power. Perhaps from loneliness, perhaps from curiosity, perhaps from a desire to share love, God began to work on his greatest project yet, a being that would mirror himself, the human, two humans specifically, Adam and Eve. They were placed inside a paradise built for them on earth, the Garden of Eden. In the garden, God placed a tree that bared fruit that would grant anyone who ate it powers bestowed only to a God, to tell good from evil, left from right, to live righteously or to sin. He named this the tree of knowledge. God told Adam and Eve they could eat whatever they wanted in the garden, but never the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And if they disobeyed him, it would be punishable by death. The basic way the story of Eden is told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the tree of knowledge.
Ooh. Oh, okay. There's a couple. I mean, so far he's telling the story. There's only one thing that it is his interpretation, which is the part about God being lonely and curious. God doesn't have the ability to be curious because he's all knowing. He also is not alone because he exists as three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who have existed in relationship together for all of eternity. So it's impossible for him to be alone. Created man, humans, simply for his pleasure. I don't understand why, but he did, and I'm grateful he did because I get to live. I get to live life. The reason I pause is because when he starts talking about the serpent, something musically happens, and Ren is really good at this. He's playing something called tritones. What a tritone is the augmented fourth of a major scale, a raised fourth. So if you picture like a C major scale on a piano, from C to C is all white keys, except when you get to the F is sharp. So it's an F sharp. If you play C to F sharp, because there's 12 steps between notes, the tritone is always the sixth. It's the sixth step, the sixth half step above the root note. It's the exact middle because from C to F sharp is the same distance as F sharp to C. And that's why it's called a tritone. Triangle, tritone. If you put the if you put them on a thing, it's gonna anyway. This was also known as the devil's interval back in like way early times, and you know back when people were writing classical music, back in the Baroque area, in the Romantic period, in the Renaissance, you were prohibited from putting tritones in your music because it was so ominous sounding, it was so evil sounding, and you just heard it. I'm going to go back, but you just heard it. If you get the feeling of that evil, it's because he's playing a tritone. He's doing it. He knows this. He knows this knowledge of what the tritone's history is. Ironically, if you've also seen West Side Story, it's part of the melody for the main song Maria. Maria. They just resolve it to make it sound happy, but it is a tritone. Anyway, that's a little bit of history. But listen to what happens. Listen. Listen.
It would be punishable by death. The basic way the story of Eden is told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the tree of knowledge.
He keeps doing it.
Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate knowledge filled their minds, and they realized they were naked and felt shame. God discovered this betrayal and felt angry. He exiled Adam and Eve and cursed them with the life of a mortal. They would work, they would bear children, and they would die. The fate of a human. Now look deeper.
In the story, the serpent tempted me by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
the only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to
death.
This could be...
Okay, so we've moved beyond him just retelling the story of Eden. Now he's putting his interpretation on it. This is probably where the commentary is going to come in thick from a Bible-believing Christian. So if you're not into that, feel free to tune out now. Keep the comments respectful. I'm not going to delete comments. I'll let the comments speak for themselves. So if you're a butt, everyone's going to know. I've made it clear. Couple things about this. I do think it's interesting that we're moving into the mind of Eve. He says one thing here that is just not good. Let me go back to Eve real quick, because there's actually a first part that she states.
Look deeper.
In the story, the serpent tempted me by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
The only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to
death.
That's false. There's a misconception that God can do all things. There's certain things God cannot do. God cannot sin. God cannot lie. God cannot do anything that is out of the covenant that he created and documented in his word. The deception, basically what she's saying here is that the serpent didn't actually deceive her, but he did. The actual lie that was whispered wasn't, hey, eat this, because if you read the story, Eve says no, and she says, God told me not to eat this because, and then Satan says, did God really say that? It gets her to doubt. And we talked about this in High Ren, that the devil works, but his native language is lies. When he opens his mouth, he's lying. End of story. Because God does not have the ability to lie, this part is untrue biblically. And the fact that he said that he did not condemn them to death, if he did not condemn them to death, then what is this? He says that we were now destined to work, to bear children, and to die. Yes, God sentenced humans to death by the course of human bodily deterioration and age. And yes, there's sickness and all that stuff in the world, but that's because sin exists in the world. So that part right there, that God lied by not condemning them to death, is actually false, because he did, and Ren says that he does. So he's contradicting himself.
Meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
The only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to
death.
This could be seen as an act of
Mercy, but the sheer fact that the tree existed and that humans
were initially cut off from this knowledge.
may imply
Sorry, there was a bug. I need to go back. There was a little like mosquito.
This could be seen as an act of
mercy, but the sheer fact that the tree existed and that humans
were initially cut off from this knowledge.
may imply some part of God was afraid that if humans were granted the gift of perception, they, like Lucifer, would have the power to reject him too.
So that's not true either. In fact, the reason that God put the tree in the garden at all was for Adam and Eve to exercise free will. If he did not give them a choice, they would have essentially been robots, kind of like the angels. But the tree actually exists because he gave them free will. It was proof that they had it. It was only when they ate it that they understood that. But the fact that he put it there to like play with them isn't true. And what he says here is also not true. That God was afraid. What is there for God to be afraid of? Nothing.
Afraid that if humans were granted the gift of perception, they, like Lucifer, would have the power to reject him too.
But that's the whole point. Forcing somebody to love you is not love. If the tree wasn't there, virtue and love would have never existed. We wouldn't have had a choice in the matter like the angels don't. Let's continue.
The fact that there stood a beautiful tree that could
grant this knowledge in the first place
implies that a small part of
God, supposedly all-knowing,
perhaps wanted and intended
the humans to
bite too.
In the Bible, Satan was an exiled angel of free will. Humans are exiled
descendants of Adam and Eve,
also with free will. Not only have we shared a similar fate to the devil, we were also both constructed
we
in the
were
image of
also
our
both
Creator,
constructed in the image of our Creator,
meaning our behaviors, in some shape or form, imperfectly echo His.
We could assume.
interesting twist of the story. So the Bible never refers to angels being made in the image of God, but the angels are called sons of God, implying in some context God did make them in His image. However, the manner in which God created humans in the image of God was distinct from the manner in which God created angels in His image. So there's no direct reference that states that angels were made in the image of God. So that part's not true because he can't back it up. Satan was an exiled angel of free will. He's not wrong. What he decided was to be prideful. He decided to have everybody worship him. There's also another part in this story where Satan wasn't just banished and exiled to earth. Satan also somehow convinced 1/3 of all of the angels to take place in this mutiny, and so 1/3 of the angels were also banished to earth, and those are referred to today as demons. So all demons were once angels. I'm gonna go back a little bit. We still got like 5 minutes left, but I feel like we got to go deep here.
Perhaps wanted and intended
The humans to
Bite 2.
In the Bible, Satan was an exiled angel of free will. Humans are exiled
descendants of Adam and Eve.
also with free will. Not only have we shared a similar fate to the devil,
That's the one I was thinking of. So we do not share a similar fate with the devil. The devil was created in heaven as an angel. We were created on earth to inhabit and populate the earth. Those fates are very different. If you read the end of the book, if you read Revelation, the ultimate fate that the devil is going to experience is eternity in the lake of fire. That is not something that believers will experience. So we do not share a similar fate to the devil. He's looking very, very, very like one-dimensionally at these. I respect Ren. He probably has a lot of. It sounds to me like he has spent some time studying scripture, even though his interpretation of it is not biblically correct. Maybe he grew up in church. Maybe he had a bad experience in church. Maybe he had people just give him bad information on what their view of the word is. And from what you guys tell me, he's had a pretty rough life, and kind of turned to whatever he could turn to for healing. So I respect Ren, and I think that some of the things that he's doing to inspire people and bring awareness to mental health and the spiritual condition is great. But if you're going to use a Bible story to tell a story, the story has to be told correctly.
we were also both constructed
We
in the
were
image of
also
our
both
Creator,
constructed in the image of our Creator.
meaning our behaviors, in some shape or form, imperfectly echo His.
We could assume that this kind of
God has his day.
Our behaviors, this whole interpretation thing, he's just seeing it from a really, really weird lens. Our behaviors are not indicative of God's behavior. Our behaviors our poor behaviors are from that sinful nature that we're all born with, the need to want to do bad, right? Actually, Paul says in Romans 7, I got to read this. Let me find it real quick. Yeah. It's right here. So Paul says in Romans 7, I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. He's talking about how sin makes us behave. But if I know that what I'm doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So that, again, if we know what we're doing is wrong, we have a moral compass to follow. So he goes on. So I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. That is definitionally what sin is. Sin is the thing that causes us to do bad things. But the good thing is that we were built with that free will and the knowledge of what's right and wrong, and we still make the choice to do it. So I'm gonna go on a slight tangent for a second. And I'm gonna rat out Christians. Yes, I'm gonna rat us out. The one thing that Christians do a really bad job at is taking personal responsibility. We blame the devil for a lot of things that the devil's not responsible for. The devil does not possess the same qualities of God. He's not omnipotent. He's not omniscient. Satan can't be everywhere at once. He has a legion of demons, but even they're limited. Now there's a lot of demons. However, we are quick to give the devil credit for something that we have done ourselves instead of taking personal responsibility for the behaviors that we need to change. I used to have a pastor that would say, the biggest enemy is the enemy in me. It's me. It's my flesh. It exists because of sin, but the devil is not sitting here whispering in my ear to do things. I, as a human being, want to sin. I do. But I choose not to. Not always great at it, but I choose not to. I have that choice. So Christians, do better. Take personal responsibility. Stop blaming the devil for what he didn't do. Stop giving him more credit than he deserves. Okay? Let's go on.
Doubts, but as the most
Powerful being in the universe.
I'm gonna go back for a second. Hold on.
This kind of
God has his doubts, but as the most
Powerful being in the universe.
he has no one above him
To turn to with questions. And no one to
Doubt but himself, an incredibly lonely and isolating existence.
Again, he's not lonely.
We must only assume that the common thread between God, Lucifer, and us is the desire for more, an eternal curiosity.
There's a lot of pausing here. You had to expect this when you guys recommended this to me. God he does not desire more. He is and makes and is in everything.
Desire, perhaps birth.
We desire for more. Our whole world around us is crumbling because we have this desire for more, which is part of sin.
From a seed of loneliness. If not, why would we exist in the first place?
We exist just for his pleasure. We exist to be in relationship with him. That's it. Probably not an answer you guys are looking for, but that's the answer.
The constantly looping, bittersweet irony is whether gifted by some omnipotent God or simply a byproduct of billions of years of evolution, here we stand in 2023 as creatures with free will. The only creatures that understand and define good from bad. Creatures with the potential of a God. And what do we do with that free will, my friends? We willingly walk to the edge of a cliff. In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. The empires we build ravage the earth.
He's getting into it now. Everything he just said was true. Everything he just said was true. He told the story. He told his interpretation of it, which we spent a good amount of time on. Now he's setting the stage for basically it doesn't matter what you believe. Whether you believe we were given to this by an omnipotent God or through billions of years of evolution. He is basically saying, regardless of what you believe, what is it that we do going forward? So let us look at that as well. I'm not here to convert you. You're not here to convert me. I'm here to love you, and I'm going to. The only person who can bring you to God is God. Now, it's my responsibility to live in a way that God has told me to live so that his goodness can be seen through the things that I do, but it's not because of me, it's because of him. But it's not my job to like shove scripture and the Bible down your throat. My job is to be the best man, husband, father, friend, businessman, entrepreneur, reaction person that I can be, because my inspiration to be excellent comes from him. That's it. So now we're going to get into some stuff, it looks like.
The natural order of things are necessary to survive. Any systems which do not honor homeostasis eventually perish. Our free will overrides our own biological instinct. We can take more than we eat. We can kill more than we need. We can willingly create weapons with the potential to burn everything we've built to the ground. We willingly
These effects on his voices are so awesome.
decide to bow at the altar of greed, the most insidious and destructive of all sins. We put our faith in corporations who pose as rulers. We willingly allow ourselves to be led by outdated power systems ran by corrupted politicians
and bloated dictators who claim domain and dominion over an open and free land.
We willingly
The voice gets lower and lower and more evil and dark. First of all, regardless of what you believe, can we all agree on this? Everything he just said? Can we agree on this? I do. I'm certain you do.
elect the corrupted when the decision was always ours to build something better.
Oh my gosh, that's the crazy part. Do we elect these people? We do.
We willingly create an
I don't know how it works in the UK, but American politics is messed up, man.
imposed separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television sets. We always had the will to reject these things, but we adhere to them as though they were the laws of physics.
Jeez.
War, famine, pestilence, greed, these aren't things imposed upon us by an all-powerful God or by his demonic adversary. They are here because of us, not because of free will, but because of our inability to use it.
Didn't we just talk about that? About how Christians, we need to take personal responsibility for our decisions, for our acting and our free will?
We must be motivated to be better, not out of fear of punishment of an eternal damnation, but because the choice exists, because we love ourselves, because we have the power to absolve ourselves of so much unnecessary suffering. Take a second to be in this very moment.
Yeah.
In this moment, how much suffering is happening all over the planet right now? How many people are dying of illnesses that could have easily been cured, but aren't because of the selfishness and greediness of humanity? How many people break their backs and reject their own passions to simply afford bills and food? How many of us crave distraction from existence? How many of us numb that pain in whatever way necessary? How many children are being abused? How many people sleep cold and hungry on the streets? How many of us become cogs inside a machine that is destroying itself? How many soldiers have been forced to fight in meaningless wars? How many humans have killed for ideals they don't believe in or understand? How many people have died for the greed of another man?
Gosh.
And how much of this was avoidable?
Whoa.
As written in the Bible, Satan was not condemned to hell. Satan was condemned to earth. He lives there amongst other creatures with free will, who always had the choice and still chose their own undoing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our self-made hell. The bittersweet irony is this is a creation of our own design. I'll leave you with this. Consider what you have done here today. You have worked together as individuals collaborating to form a giant neural network, a hive mind capable of achieving incredible things. We have lent on each other's strengths to solve puzzles and decipher riddles, and we've done so to win money.
Is this his reference to the money game? Is he now referencing like the end of that social experiment right here?
Imagine applying that same spirit and determination to creating the closest thing we have to paradise here on Earth. By using the power of collaboration, we can work together to even the playing field for everybody. Our dystopias can become utopias. Our Jahannams can become Jannah. Our hells can become heaven, right here on Earth. And this sentiment applies to atheists, agnostics, and believers alike. Myself, I'm an agnostic who believes. I believe in us. We must do better because we can choose to. We must be better simply because the option exists. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. That was Eden by Ren. He told the story. He told the story pretty well. A couple tiny things there. He went into his interpretation of the story, which we had a lot of commentary on. But the back half of this video, he ain't wrong. He's not wrong. This is really neat that he, and again, this is what I believe. You don't have to believe the same thing. I'm not asking you to. This is what I choose to believe. So if you want to act a certain way in the comments section, you go ahead and do so. I'm going to leave the comments up, and I'm still going to love you. You're all welcome here. I just hope that I'm welcome wherever you are as well. Yeah, we can do better, guys. We can, and I think that's the point of this whole thing. He even said, atheists, agnostics, and believers alike, this is for all of us. We can all work together to make the world a better place. Our aim should really be to make the world better when we leave it than when we entered it. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna, this is gonna sound very pessimistic, and I'm usually optimistic. I don't know if a lot's gonna change, because just given the pervasive nature of greed, like he said, people wanting more and more and more, there will always be that desire, and it'll always supersede any good intentions that we have. Which is, as a Christian, where I choose to lean on a all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God for that guidance and wisdom on how to do something that I am not unable to fulfill with my own flesh. That's the choice I've made. You have to make that choice for yourself. What a great video. The only thing that we spent a lot of time on was the theological differences between what he believes. And again, he's the one that chose to use the story of Eden to use as a foundation for the goal here. He could have done all this actually without using the story of Eden. Like, if you go halfway here and play the rest of it, that could stand alone as an inspirational video. Ren, for some reason, chose to use the story of Eden to tell this. So when he did, he invited commentary on it, and when he chose to put his own spin on it, you know, you and I can talk about the differences, but if you're going to use a biblical story, you have to use the biblical story as it's written. In that story, there's really no interpretation. God was pretty clear why he created Eden, why he created humans, why he created angels. He was pretty clear why he put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in that garden. But he also made a way when sin entered our world for us to be in relationship and in righteousness with him, which is when he sent his son Jesus Christ to die in place of us for all the sin. So I'm grateful for that. So again, I respect the heck out of Ren and what he's doing. Obviously, we disagree on biblical substance and theology, but that's okay. The good news is that you and I can still disagree on that, and we can still do the things he's asking us to do. We can still work together to make the world a better place. We're just being inspired to do it from a different place, and that's okay. We can work together. Thank you guys for bringing this to my attention. Thank you for spending so much time on this, obviously the longest video that I've had on the channel. I appreciate the suggestion. We got more Ren in the pipeline. I'll see you guys on the next video. Subscribe for more. And you guys have a great day.